Anisha, we are live now, so you can start with the welcome note. Anisha, you're not audible.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you're perfectly audible.
Yeah. So, greetings everyone. My name is Anisha and I'm a research scholar. And I would like to extend a hearty welcome to today's speaker. We are really honored to have you with us, sir, and in this webinar organized by RLA. To just give a brief introduction of RLA, RLA is an international affairs observer group based out of New Delhi, India. It focuses on critical issues related to China, with special focus on Sino-India relations, issues of national security, international security, energy, and environment. The main aim of our organization is to draw in India's foremost academic institutions and security intelligentsia, corporate institution, monetary establishments, and experts in discussions on India's foreign policy and extend the country's role in global issues. To maximize the institutional and scholarly capacity of strategic thinking in India, we are required to integrate expertise in our research in order to foster an even-minded international strategy for India. This young organization that is in constant search for fresh ideas and thoughts in the strategic study discourse, with this goal in mind, we have set ourselves up as an autonomous and solitary international strategy think tank. We are an intellectual startup functioning with small number of individuals who are passionate about international affairs. So today's session will be moderated by Arshay. Arshay Bhardwaj is a postgraduate in the field of political science from the University of Delhi. Her areas of interest are global relations, India's diplomatic relations, policy making, social issues. Her focus is on enhancing her analytical skills and learning foreign languages as well. So we would like to welcome you once again, sir. And now I request Akshay to take forward the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Anisha, for the introduction. Good evening, sir. We have today with us, everybody, Idris Stanik Kazai with us, and who has been a former political and senior advisor for the Political and Public Affairs Ministry in Afghanistan. And today our webinar focuses around the security and politics of Afghanistan. And we will, further discussion will be regarding the current political culture the Taliban is facing, the current issues that are ongoing. And as we see the trend in Afghanistan today, along with certain subsequent mishappenings that are taking place around the globe, which we highly condemn. So I would like to welcome you, sir, and I would like to move forward with our discussion. We have been seeing this trend with the Taliban, very strong implementation of Sharia law. So I would like to ask that the Sharia law that is being implemented by Taliban currently, does it stand in line with any of the four elements, key elements of security? When I say four key elements of security, that is governance, delivery service, economic and sustainable development. Is it in line with any of these anywhere?
Well, unfortunately, not just the Taliban, but if you see an extremist group, especially under the name of Islam, if it is the ISIS or if it is Taliban, if there is Jaish Muhammad or the other terrorist groups, they have nothing to do with Islam. And all they are doing is acting against Islam and not following Islam, but they are just killing innocent people under the name of Islam. Suppose these suicide bombings, if you come to Islam, Islam says that if you kill one innocent man or human, like you have killed all the universe. So Islam is very clear about this, but they are just, making excuses of Islam for their own personal agenda, especially the Taliban. As you know, it's a pro-ISI extremist group, and they were created, unfortunately, by the Americans just 40 years ago against the Soviet Union. Even Osama was there. Osama bin Laden used to be a hero, a jihadi against the Soviet Union to the west. And people like Osama bin Laden, they were mujahideen who were trained, who were equipped, and who were sent under the name of Islam to fight the Soviet Union, because they knew that Afghan nation, they stand for their religious beliefs. They can die and they can kill, but the nation didn't know that they were being sold to these proxy wars, and they were not being told the truth. So almost 1 million got killed in the Russian invasion. USSR invasion was over. But since then, a very, very bad culture remained, and it was the using the name of Islam for their political, for their proxy, for their terror in the region, especially in Afghanistan. So it has nothing to do with Islam. It's all about these intelligence services. They are using religion as a shield, as you can see it in India, because the elections are coming, and in what happened in Karnataka. I'm seeing Hindus talking in protection of the Muslims, and same Muslims, they don't have anything, any problem with each other. They are living since many years in peace, in love, and brotherhood. But see, the politicians, either of both sides, making excuses and making religion a political fight so they can have their word. So religion has got nothing to do with these political gains and these terror gains. It's all for their own agenda. It's all for their own benefit.
So yes, I totally agree with you as you say that, because yes, we see that they are using Islam as a shield, because there is no religion around the world that promotes killing, or like the
Absolutely.
recent incident that took place of. I understand that there are certain rules and regulations, but publicly beating somebody over a crime is not definitely how Islam works or any religion in the world works. There are always regulations. So I duly acknowledge and I totally agree with you when you say that they are, in the name of Sharia and the name of Islam, they are shielding themselves and trying to implement their own personal interests. Following this is my second question. That is, as we all are very clear that they are using Islam as a shield, religion as a shield. So, how these restrictions in the name of Sharia law is affecting women's security, or our economic security in Afghanistan, political security, specifically the regional or the religious security, because I think that plays a very important role when we talk about the religion and the region. So I would like you to respond to this.
See, when Mujahideen was created 40 years ago, and then some of them wanted to have a normal life, but the extremists of them were taken as the Taliban. Many times I hear that Taliban just came out of the blue. No, the Pakistanis, the ISI, they selected the most extreme ones to become the Taliban, and those mujahideens that who didn't want to become extreme, and they had ties and they had suits and they wanted to be in the government, the ISI did disconnect themselves with them, but they picked up the most extreme, so they could do the most extreme things like fighting and torturing women. Like if you read and if you follow the life and the attitude of Muhammad, peace be upon him, towards women, how he treated his wives and the women around him, you would know that Islam has given the most rights to women. Even in Afghan culture, the women are the commander-in-chief in our houses. So when I was a little boy, my sister was the commander-in-chief. And then when I grew up, when I was young, my mother was there, and I could not tell her no. And it was all about my mother controlling me. Now that I'm married, it's my wife, and tomorrow, if I have a daughter, it will be my daughter. So even in our culture, it's always the woman in the house, in command. And Taliban is not part of this culture because they are not raised in this community, in this land, unfortunately. They were, for decades, they were in Pakistan, and they were raised there, they were trained there. So as you know, the Pakistanis, they are not so good with women. Many rapes, so disrespect for women, and we can see it on media, on social media. There's no culture, no good culture for women in Pakistan. So that bad culture has been brought to Afghanistan by the Taliban too. Another thing, there is only one resistance that can hurt the Taliban is the women, because there is no other resistance, no fight. The government has collapsed. So the only people who are giving hard time to the Taliban are women. And they are thinking, okay, if we let them like this, and if we give them freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of work, freedom of education, then it will be very hard and almost impossible for us to control them, because they can now not face a dozen of women, like 12 to 15 women coming to streets, and they are very, very harsh to them. So imagine if it is hundreds of them, and if it is thousands of them, and they are asking for their rights. So that would be not good for them and for the mentality of their fighters, because their fighters, even when I was in the government from 2013, I was working with the security sector. When every time, or most of the times, when the Taliban were arrested by our forces, so we would usually do ask about Islam from them, the very basics about the kalima, about prayer, and you would be, surprised that they didn't even know the meaning of the kalima. That they read. Even a 5 and 6 year old in our schools would know that. But these Taliban fighters would only know one thing, which is jihad. And even they didn't get that right. They got it from the Pakistani madrasas, which are backed by the ISI. Because the best jihad is to protect the innocent. That's the best jihad that Islam teaches us, not kill the innocent. So this is a very bad culture, a very bad mentality brought from Pakistan to Afghanistan in Taliban.
So, Idris, when you talk about women being on the roads and fighting, I have came across the news over social media. The women in Kabul, they are fighting for their rights, and there are ladies exceptionally operating schools for the children, online and offline, which is a great thing, and it's one of the best things to listen it coming it from a male figure, that women should be in the command, and if women stand together, they could actually push out the Taliban. It's one of the most important aspect of economic inclusiveness also. So I would like to move on to the next question. We have been talking about Pakistan, and of course, I have been doing my research regarding certain things, and I came across that the UN, there was in 2020 on 29th of February. UN, Afghanistan, and Taliban, Afghanistan officials, of course, the government at that time, there was a declaration that took place. So UN strategy of Afghanistan focused on 4R plus S approach. That is basically reinforce, realign, regionalize, and reconcile. And S stood for sustain. But I want to understand, and I'm sure that everybody here wants to understand which part of this approach went haywire, because soon after that, slowly and steadily, the Taliban started taking over. When we talk about reconcile, the UN and the government in Afghanistan at that time was wanting to reconcile with Taliban and providing an opportunity to be politically elected. But something went wrong. So according to you, what really went wrong within this strategical approach?
Well, one thing from the collapse of Afghanistan and now the Ukraine war, we all know that the UN, the international law in the West, they are very, very hypocrites, liars, and very racist. So from the beginning in Doha, I still remember my Khalilzad said that nothing will be agreed until everything is agreed. But they agreed on things that was only for the interest of the American people, and they didn't care about the Afghan people in the games of the past 20 years. See, these people, since the war started in Ukraine, it's been almost a week, and you see a lot of actions, a lot of strict actions against the Russians, which is good. But have you seen any of such kind actions and sanctions against Pakistan in the past 20 years or 40 years, who has been harboring and killing innocent people in Afghanistan and India? Nothing. The UN knows that. The international community is aware. Even the media is aware, the Western media, but they are very quiet on that. We saw how they are acting on Ukraine. You know, you must have seen it. They are crying because these Ukrainians have blonde hair and blue eyes. They are civilized and they are not like Iraq and Afghanistan, as the reporters were saying, and they don't belong to a third world country. Even the Indian, Afghan, and black students are not allowed to cross the border, and they are stopped and pushed and hit by the Ukrainian army. So what is this? It is hypocrisy. You cannot trust the UN. What they are saying and what they are doing is totally different. It's because of them that Afghanistan collapsed, especially the United States and our Western allies. They stabbed us in the back, unfortunately, from the start of the Doha talk. The Afghan government, the Afghan people was not present yet. Everything was happening behind closed doors, and there were Taliban, there were the ISI colonels, and there were the Americans. And they were deciding the fate of the Afghan people in the Afghan future, where there was no Afghan government involved and no Afghans involved. So what the UN says and what the UN has told us since the Bonn conference, they have lied to us, and we cannot trust them after the collapse of Afghanistan regarding any issue from now on.
I totally agree with you, because when you say that they have been lying and they're hypocrites, because I went across your interview about the Doha talks, and you have mentioned it there also that there were discussion behind those and they were not disclosing anything further on to the government and the political actors. And yeah, so there was another thing that I came across, which is, of course, I agree with you when you say that they did not put any sanctions on Pakistan for so long, which they could have done very easily. So when I came across the declaration, I also saw about this resolution where they talk about when they spoke about sustainability and when they were talking about reorganizing everything, they said that Pakistan must play a very important role in peaceful building of Afghanistan and the war in Afghanistan taking place, wherein it is very ironic to observe that Pakistan itself is, according to FATF, under the grey list and is being monitored because they have not, confiscated the asset of the terrorists that were designated by US itself. So what do you think about that? And you could also shed some light about what you think about the Doha agreement that was taking place.
Well, starting from the Doha agreement, they were having sessions almost for 3 years, right? And what they gave to the media was only 4 pages. So do you think that they were talking behind closed doors for 3 years only for these 4 pages that were given to media? Of course not. There were more pages, but they will not be shared with the people with the media. And now the Western people and the Western, not the people, sorry, but the Western government, and that they are trying to show so anti-Taliban, they are not. They have deals behind the doors. They are one behind the doors. And you will see, mark my words from today, you will say that these Americans, the American government and the Western government will be the best allies with the Taliban. They will be working together. There will be no women's rights. They would not care for human rights. They would not care for anything else but their own interests. When the Taliban took over, you would see that foreigner delegations coming to Afghanistan from Europe, from Canada, from the United Nations, there were all men, no women at all involved. Even the international community was taking steps in following the Taliban regarding the women. Even with what was funnier, they brought a male, a man for UN Women Afghanistan, which was supposed to be a woman because it is the head of UN Women Afghanistan. So if you are working for a woman, you have to be a woman, not a man. But just to satisfy the Taliban, they brought Amin for UN Women, Afghanistan. So Doha agreement was a disaster, but from the day it began, we knew that it began to destroy and to collapse the republic. They wanted to bring the Emirates back, Emirates of Taliban, the Taliban regime back, for whatever reason, they have it in the back. But they didn't want the republic to continue, and they wanted the republic to collapse, which they did. And Khalil Zad was the #1 man for this, behind this. And he was lying to the Afghan government, even he was lying to the Trump administration, to the American people. So he has his own agenda following. About the Pakistan, I must say that the world is not, especially the Western or in UN, they are not, going very strict against the Pakistan because they were together in many actions, in many incidents, in many war crimes against the Afghan people. Like I said before, who funded the Mujahideen? Like the Saudis, who created the idea, the CIA, and who pushed it and implemented it, the ISI. So when you are in a crime, so together, when me and you or some of our other friends are in a crime together, we cannot go against each other and testify because we are equally in that. So that's why the West, when Joe Biden was a senator, he came to Kabul to visit Kabul, and he had dinner with President Karzai. And President Karzai has asked him that there should be sanctions on Pakistan, and Pakistan is sponsoring terrorists in Afghanistan. And President Karzai said that he stopped eating dinner and he, tapped the table very hard, and he said Pakistan is important to the Americans 50 times more than Afghanistan to us. They are our strategic partners. What does it mean? Strategic partners and 50 times more important than Afghanistan. It means they have been involved for many, many, many war crimes against the Afghan people since 40 years together. That's why UN acts against them, and is this spot and gray list. It's all nonsense, trust me. These lists are made by them and removed by them and recreated by them. You cannot believe these lists because now Sirajuddin Haqqani, who is for now the interior minister, right? He is in the terrorist list, and there's a bounty on his head for $10 million from the United States, the Western countries, and the UN. But on a weekly basis, you can see that these Western diplomats and UN diplomats and workers are meeting Siraj Haqqani in his office. So if you have a bounty of $10 million on his head, but again you're going to him, discussing meetings, then what kind of terrorist does make him? Maybe a favorite one. And also, let me remind you that about these lists. Did you know that till 2008, Nelson Mandela was in U.S. terrorist watch list till 2008? So you cannot believe these lists, blacklists, gray lists that they are making. It is only and only for their own interest, and it will go on like that, unfortunately.
It's sad to know that there is so much hidden from the citizens when you are working for the citizen and when your goal is to deliver services and be honest and be transparent. It's upsetting, and the Afghan people, what they are going through currently is, I mean, all around the globe, everybody's sitting in different parts of the world. We can see what is happening, but it's very difficult for us to be in their shoes and be, just experience or understand or be able to give what we can give. It's very difficult, and getting to know that the governments are itself faulty and flawed and are working towards, towards something that is immoral or not correct is upsetting. I would also like to ask you, recently UN had frozen the fundings, and now the fundings have been allowed because there's a humanitarian crisis taking place. So the funding has been allowed, and would it be to cater the needs of Afghan people? they say that the parallel administration will be taking care of the funding, and it will directly not go into the hands of the Taliban. But do you think that there is any clean intention of Taliban when Taliban itself was requesting that the fundings should be allowed? Did they had any clean intentions behind it? I mean, it's difficult to grasp the idea. Somebody who's violating laws every day, harming citizens and innocent people every day, and then they request for funding. So, what is your say in it?
Well, what's funny to me that the Western world is really eager and very, very proud to work with the Taliban, with these terrorists, but they are punishing the Afghan people for their defeat in Afghanistan. They are working with the Taliban, it's okay for them, but instead of punishing the Taliban, they are punishing the Afghan people. And that is why they have chosen our funds. Those $7 to $8 billion, they don't belong to the Taliban, they didn't belong to the Afghan government or the Americans. It belongs to the Afghan people to sustain and maintain the value of our currency. In what Biden said, in what we have heard, that they will split it between the Afghan people and the victims of 9/11. First of all, this currency, this money which is chosen, it is not for humanitarian aid. It's not for humanitarian aid. As I said, it is to sustain and maintain the value of our Afghani currency. So why would you use it against this? It's not for humanitarian aid. Second of all, why our money should be given to the 9/11 victims? So all the terrorists were Arabs. While you have very good connection with the Arabs, you pay them, you take fuel from them, you give them weapons. But for the crime that we didn't commit and we were not involved, you are making us to pay, and you should pay the Arabs. Or where was Osama bin Laden? He was in Pakistan. He died in Pakistan. If it is about the Al Qaeda or 9/11, what have you done against Pakistan? Sanctuaring the leader of Al Qaeda, Osama bin Laden, for years. They did nothing. But again, you are punishing innocent Afghans and taking and stealing their funds. I think this is very injustice, and this is very stupid of them. Regarding the UN, I have to tell you that once I was working with the presidential palace as senior political analyst. I think it was 3 years before, 2.5 years before. So I heard that President Ghani, former president of Afghanistan, he had a fight with the UN staff, and he was very angry on them. So I asked one of his close aides, and I told him, why was the president so angry on them while the UN is working and helping the Afghans? And he said, did you know that there was a project of $500 million for the Afghans to UN, but 300 of that $300 million were only used for the HR cost of UN, and 200 million were left for Afghans. So you take $500 million under the name of helping Afghans, but you use 300 million of that for your non-HR and salaries. I mean, this is crazy, and this is also stupid. You take that money under my name, and the world is saying that you are helping Afghans, while you are helping yourself. Same as these Western countries saying that we have helped Afghanistan with billions of dollars. They did not help Afghanistan with billions of dollars. They did help their own factories, their own military companies and industrial complex with these billions of dollars. From each $10, $6 has been back to the US and these private organizations and companies. So how can you say that you have helped Afghans? They have helped themselves by the money that was given to the Afghans. These money, these billions of dollars that they promised and they sent to Afghanistan, it was given back to the American contractors. So this is what has been done in Afghanistan, unfortunately.
So, Idris, so since globalization came in, and everything has its positive and negatives, and when you talk about this, you have definitely told us that how globalization and capitalization has basically given more negative, and how even positives are being converted into negative agendas and personal interests. So when we talk about the funding and we talk about what is happening, as you shed some light on the ground level reality, uh, so these fundings being actually provided? Are these fundings actually accessible to the people, to the citizens of Afghanistan currently?
Unfortunately, not yet. As the UN said that they have helped in the past 6 months $2 billion currently, and I don't see that those $2 billion are spent because people are still very and bad and poor condition, and even they are selling their kidneys on daily basis. You would see people selling their kidneys. In the past 20 years, I have never seen so much youngsters committing suicide because of bad economy that I have seen in the past 6 months. So I don't see any betterness in the condition, unfortunately. I think we need a basic solution for the Afghan economy, and it should not collapse. Humanitarian aid is not the solution. Like till when you will just provide food, you would provide some shelter. This is not the solution. We have a proverb in Afghanistan, and it says, "Don't give me a fish, but teach me how to get a fish." So we don't need a fish. We need that we should know how to get our fishes by our own. So we need basic, basic economy development that even we didn't have in the past 20 years. The systems that were brought in Afghanistan, either it was in the security level or economy level or whatever, in political level, it was all nonsense. It was all disaster. See, even after 20 years, after billions of dollars that they are saying we have spent in the democracy of Afghanistan, we were not able to pay after the collapse and after the Americans left. We were not even able to pay the salaries of our teachers, which is very few. So what have they done in the past 20 years in Afghanistan? Nothing basic. And you know why? Because this was promised in Bonn that Afghanistan won't be taken to a stage where it could be a threat to Pakistan. This was a promise, this was the agreement between the Western countries and the Pakistan, that you will not take Afghanistan as high as it will be a threat to the Pakistan. And that's what it happened.
So when you say that Afghanistan would be a threat to Pakistan, I would like you to elaborate on that a little more. If Afghanistan grows in its economy, and it does play a very important role when it comes to resources, and a lot many countries surrounding Afghanistan would want to capture it. It's a very strategical position and a strategic role that Afghanistan plays. So I would like to know your view on that.
Sure. See, first of all, it is the security sector. And even in the Doha talks, one of the main things that Taliban were discussing, in the ISI colonels were discussing, they wanted to reduce the numbers of our army. They were saying that Afghanistan don't need such a large army. Why would they be very worried about our army? It was for our own protection. And they were saying that you have to cut it off to 50%. So you have to cut it off and you have to reduce the Afghan army. So one of the reasons they were talking is the security sector didn't want a good army, didn't want a good police in Afghanistan, and they definitely didn't want an intelligence service who would be a threat or who would be a challenge to ISI. So that's why they wanted a weakened, a very weak and dependent and corrupt security sector for Afghanistan first. The second thing was the control of our water. So if Afghanistan would develop, so there would be no free water for Pakistan and Iran. And you know the value of water these days. It's even expensive than fuel. So they didn't want our dams to be built. They didn't want our waters and dams to be controlled because Pakistan and Iran would have no water, no free water. That's why this is the second cause. The third cause is the economy. See, we were very dependent. Our economy was our many things, and life things that we needed, like rice and oil and many other things, food. We were very dependent on Pakistan. It was all coming from Pakistan, you know. But since President Ghani took over, he was very good in one thing, and that was how to build the economy. He knew the ways. So he said, I don't need Pakistan. I'm going to Uzbekistan, I'm going to Tajikistan, and there will be many ways, and I will go to India. So I will not need only way to boost my economy. This shouldn't be the only way to Pakistan. And when in the past years we had the disputes and wars and our problems with Pakistan, they would close the doors, you know, in Spinbolak and in Torkham, in the in the Durand line, they would close the doors and they would not permit anyone in our businessmen to transport these goods to our people. So it was a very big problem to the Afghans because it would damage our economy. But since President Ghani took over, whenever Pakistanis would say we are closing the doors, we were like, okay, close the doors. We don't care. We have our own other ways. So this was, you know, the third thing. And the fourth thing was, you know, depending on their healthcare, because the whole Pakistan system was running out on our patients. Many thousands of patients on daily basis were going to Pakistan. But since we made other ways and we were progressing, so there was no money or no good job for the Pakistani doctors. And they were not doctors, they were a bunch of butchers. You know, when Afghans were going there, they were like rooted, they were robbed by these doctors, so-called doctors. So these were all the causes that Pakistan didn't want Afghanistan to progress in either section. And mostly important, the Pakistanis knew that the Afghan youth who were raised in the democracy of the past 20 years, they are so anti-Pakistan. They hate Pakistan. They hate even the name, the flag, and then I'm one of them. So they thought that there must be a regime change. So this youth, this generation should be taken down. Their voices should be taken down. As you are seeing that 2 days ago, some some youth from host, they had written some good things about our three-color flag, the national flag, and they were taken by Taliban. Their heads were shaved and they were beaten very badly. So now talking in another activist, Azim Azimi, who's been in custody since almost 1 month in Kabul, he wanted to protest against the Pakistanis in Kabul, against the National Security Advisor of Pakistan, who wanted to come to Kabul, and he wanted to protest, but he was then captured, and he was kidnapped by the intelligence department of the Taliban. And since 1 month, we don't have any news about him. So these are all these facts that Pakistan wanted a regime change and suppress those who hate Pakistan. That's why they brought the Taliban.
Thank you. These pointers that you have given are very beneficial and for us to, understand what is happening. And I can actually relate to it because yes, it has been over the news about the medical and about, like you said, that there are frauds and there are scams in Pakistan when it comes to medical. There was a recent incident
The whole country is a
previous
scam.
month. Yes. So
Yes, the whole
previous month,
country,
yes.
the creation is a scam.
And yes, totally agree. And they are themselves relying on China and taking funds and loans. So it is a loop. And of course, the Pakistan economy cannot stand stronger because of, their debt. They are under a debt when it comes to China because it's
Yeah.
all so interrelated. So when we talk about the withdrawal of troops and the troops that you were talking about, I would like to ask, according to you, who all were the political stakeholders who accepted the reduction or the withdrawal of troops? Do you think that it was anyway a wise decision? And of course, I came across this news article, and it was itself stated by the US that the troops that are in Afghanistan must be sent to places where they are more needed. And it came to my realization when Taliban took over that the Afghanistan is the place where the troops are required, because with the reduction of troops, the Taliban army, the military becomes stronger and it takes a stronger hold with no government, with no political stability. So, coming back to the question about the political stakeholders, so what do you have to say on that?
Well, about the domestic politics and those who had the power in Afghanistan, including former President Ghani and his allies, they did many mistakes in the security sector, unfortunately. Since 7 years, they brought people who they trusted in the security sector, but everyone who was brought was not professional, and they did not have the respect of the army. You know, when you come to the army as a commander in chief or as minister of defense or as the chief of staff, you are or any sector, you need to have the respect of your soldiers. And in the past 7 years in the republic, it didn't happen, unfortunately, because in 2014, it started in 2014 when we had a dispute regarding signing a contract, an agreement between the ISI and India. And so the national security advisor was Hanif Atmar at that time. He advised the president that there should be an agreement because there is no trust between the ISI and Afghan intelligence because we were enemies and there shouldn't be. But the national security advisor, who was very close to the British and the Pakistanis, he advised the president that there should be an agreement. And then Rahmatullah Nabil, who was the former Director General for the Afghan intelligence, NDS, he refused to sign that agreement. He said that I'm not going to sign any agreement with the Pakistani intelligence service because they are our enemies and we cannot trust them. After that, President Ghani and his allies thought that, okay, if we have these professional people in the security sector, they will not hear, they will not listen to us, whatever we say. They will do whatever is needed to do. So that is why his advisors advised that all these people like Rahmatullah Nabil who are against Pakistan, they should be removed. And instead of them, our own trusted people should be brought. They brought their own trusted fellows from their team members. But these trusted fellows to the president had no sense of the Afghan army or intelligence. They didn't know the country very well because most of them have come from the Western countries. Almost they have spent their life, half of their life in Western countries. They couldn't barely speak Persian or Dari or Pashto. So these unprofessional people, you know, they came to take over and they made these professional institutions to political institutions. The second thing was we had these two very, very unfortunately stupid elections, 2014, 2009, and the Dr. Abdullah, who was an opponent to President Ghani, he was not accepting the results, and he declared his own government, kind of, and he was a self-proclaimed president. So this also brought disaster to the security sector. It divided the security sector because all the heads of the security sector were brought by the politicians. So of course, when things like this happen, they take sides. And when in security sector you take sides, the country is going to collapse because the security sector shouldn't be working the leadership for the president or for the politicians. It should be working for the pride of the country, which was not happening. The third thing was unfortunately corruption. There was too much corruption in the republic. And it was happened in the Bonn Conference, because in Bonn Conference 21 or 22 years back, the Americans said that these warlords, so-called mujahideen, should be part of the government. In almost they had the government 80%, the leadership was given to them, especially the security sector. And these warlords were nothing but a bunch of corrupts. Like one of them was Ustad Atta, who was like for 15 or 16 years the governor of Balkh province. And he made almost more than $7 billion. $7 billion out of corruption, only 1 man. So having such governors, political leaders would of course lead you to unfortunately to disaster. Now there were also, external point for the collapse, and this, as I said, the security, the Doha Agreement, because in the Doha Agreement they had a very clear message to the Afghan army from the Americans, because in the past 20 years, Americans and the Western allies were working very, very closely with our leadership in their army. And they had a very, very clear message to our army that we are not going to fight, and neither you should fight. The Taliban are coming, and you should surrender. This was a very clear message. When they left Bagram, when then the Americans left Bagram, they left like thieves in the middle of the night. They did not even inform their Afghan allies that we are leaving the Bagram base and you should come and take control. They left like thieves in the middle of the night, and tomorrow we got the news that the Americans have evacuated the Bagram base, and they have cut all the technical support for our Air Force. There was no technical support. Even those private companies who were working with us, the Americans told them to stop working for the Afghan Air Force, and without the Air Force, it was very hard to fight. And I have heard that Zalmay Khalilzad has he has worked personally with many commanders, the Afghan commanders, and he has talked with them not to fight and not to get killed because Taliban are coming and there is nothing left. So there is external aspects. Unfortunately, there is internal aspects too for that. And I believe that we should have governed in a best way, which we didn't, unfortunately.
There's a lot of enlightenment that you have provided us with the how it seems that everything was planned, and except for people, the government saw it coming. And
Yeah, they knew it.
and while you talk about as you told me about the political disturbance that take place, because of course, if there are internal disturbances, that would definitely make the system weaker and external forces stronger
And it did,
to attack.
unfortunately.
Yes. So I think in a way you have answered another following question that I had, which was that how do you feel that the domestic political instability played a key role in Taliban takeover? So if
It
you
did.
have to add anything to it, so
Unfortunately, it did. See, first of all, it was the Afghan parliament. 99.9% were all warlords, corrupt people. They were always for their own sons and daughters, fighting for their own families. I don't remember a single day the Afghan parliament would stand for Afghanistan. All these corrupt warlords, in all, 99.9% were fighting and doing against the national interests of Afghanistan. And also these so-called politicians we have, the day that Kabul was collapsing, like a dozen of these mujahideen, they had a trip to Pakistan, and they went to Pakistan to see the leaders in here. So such leaders who were close to Pakistanis or to Westerns more than Afghans, they were also the cause. As I said, the corruption was also the cause, and the elections, unfortunately, it almost certainly divided the people into Tajik and the Pashtuns, and it was against our values, and the ISI was behind this. They were investing in this unity of Afghan since many, many years. I had also worked within the Afghan intelligence department. I know this. The biggest investment of the ISI was not Taliban. It was disunity among the Afghans, because they said that once they are disunited, any country, we can rule them. So it was a formula of divide and rule. So these were all the causes, that collapsed the republic, unfortunately.
I totally understand when you focus on this policy of divide and rule. It has happened before, and we all are aware of that. And when you talk about the corrupt officials, it also came to our noticed that there were a lot of high-level officials who have been sending their children and working for their own interest, sending their children to colleges, while the general public and the children of the districts of Kabul have
One,
been suffering.
yeah, one thing I should, it's personal to me. In the first place, when we started the Doha talk, I was the one elected or selected on behalf of Afghan youth to go to Doha and talk to the Taliban because I was so anti-Taliban and I worked with Afghan youth for many years and they knew that I am going to defend my national interest and especially the Afghan army, which I am very proud of them. So after 2 days, my name was removed, and the son of a warlord who saw the governor of Mazar, as I told you before, who had made $7 billion, his name was put instead of my name. And then 2 days back, they called me. Then they told me that your name is removed, and I said, "Who is going in my replacement?" And he said, "Son of Sadata, a warlord." And I was like, I laughed and I said, "It's okay because my dad was just a simple soldier and his dad is a governor and a billionaire. There's a lot of difference between me and him." And when he went here, so he had an interview and he couldn't even talk properly. He couldn't defend his country because there was a Talib reporter. He asked and he questioned him that how can you talk about human rights and country love while your father is the biggest warlord and the most corrupt man. So how can you talk about country love? And he was speechless. So, this was a personal experience for me that there were always the sons and daughters of these warlords, these mujahideen, these politicians, instead of the son of our soldiers, our teachers, or common people. And it really hurt, to be honest, because it was an injustice.
I totally agree with you. Somebody once told me that when we talk about corruption, it was a very stupid statement to hear from somebody, but it was said that the politicians are not corrupt. But I feel that politicians are corrupt, and they can never take. It's very difficult for them to take an honest stand if they are not aware of what's going around. So
The only common thing these politicians have in common is corruption.
yes, the only common thing is corruption. Yes.
Yeah,
So
corruption.
also, but as you say that they have a strong hold because of their father has the highest position, and if your father is a soldier, but I see that you are a founder of Youth Trend Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So I would want to know what is the aim and objective of this Youth Trade Afghanistan. What is it about, and what is the futuristic goal? How will it help further? Yes.
Well, we built it in, I think, around 6 and 7 years ago. It was 2013. And it was built because we saw the injustice, as I said. There was always the sons and daughters of these warlords and politicians. And one day I was sitting with my friends and we were saying that, okay, their fathers have ruled our fathers. Now their sons are ruling us. Tomorrow, their grandsons will be ruling our children. This needs to be stopped. It was just a conversation between some friends. So one of my friends asked me that who's going to stop them? And I said, we. And he said, how? I said, let's make something. And we need to bring up these young leaders from very middle class families like myself and other friends who are not sons to warlords, who are not sons to these jihadis or politicians. They are very common Afghans, but they are smart. They are honest with their country. They can sacrifice for their country, and they will work hard for their country. So that's why we made Youth Trend Afghanistan. The goal is to strive a political movement for the young Afghans, for the young leaders who is really into Afghanistan and who has no connection with these so-called leaders and politicians and corrupt warlords. And we did that. And many young leaders were working with us, especially one of the things we did in the past 7 years, it was, finding jobs for these people. Because what happened in Afghanistan, if you didn't know anyone in the government or any politician, no matter what degree you hold, you are a PhD holder or a double master's holder, how smart you are, how honest you are, you would never get the job. This was and it is happening in India too. You know that it is happening in every corner of the world. But one thing we made sure that when these guys deserve the job, because for a young man, as a young man, what is the most important thing is to get a job after you finish your education. But I would see people holding PhDs. I can still remember one of my friends from China. He came and he had a PhD. He was introduced to me with from my friend, and he became my friend. And he asked me that I want to be your cook or cleaner holding a PhD in your office if you even give me $200 per month because I need the money. I have a PhD, and it's been 3 years. I'm roaming around with my CV, and no one is going to hire me because I have no connection. I have no power in the system. So, and I told him that it will be an insult if I hire you with a PhD degree as a cook or as a cleaner, but I'll do something for you. And within a week, I found him a job with a good salary. And I have not I, but we have this youth train Afghanistan. We have done this for many, many, many youngsters. Once they got their job, so they were, stable. Once a young man after education, he gets his job, so he is stable. He is going to stand on his feet. He can support his family. But there was one condition for helping them. And the condition was that you are going to help another man, either if it is for his education, if it is for his job or whatever, that you are going to help another young Afghan whenever you can or however you can, if it is for $1 or 100 million or for a job or for anything, just for they say that change one mind at a time, that's going to change the world. So we were trying to convince and change minds in youth in Afghanistan, and we did that. And the other thing we were doing was public awareness. Our youth, under the name of jihad, under the name of fake Islam, under the name of Sharia law, which is not Sharia law, it was very easy for the terrorist organizations to take soldiers from our youth, especially in the rural area of Afghanistan, where there was no media, there was no education, no universities. So one of the things we did was public awareness, especially for Islam, to introduce them, to let them know about the values of Islam, and to let them know that killing innocents is not Islam, is not jihad. The best jihad is to feed your family in a halal way, to take care of your own self, your own family, do not harm anyone. This is the best jihad you can do, not killing and suiciding and exploding bombs. That's no jihad. And if you do that, you are definitely going to hell. So this was not just about Islam, but you would have about health issues and about women's rights, this public awareness thing, and it really worked. The other thing was, calling them to join the politics and be involved in politics, because when you are not involved in politics, when the good people are not involved in politics, definitely you make a place for the worst people. So we would tell them that if we came together, if we are united, tomorrow these warlords and their sons and daughters would not rule on us, because we would be a power, a unified power. So these were the things, we were doing for youth inside Afghanistan. But now, unfortunately, we have lost Afghanistan. And as you know, I am one of the biggest, critics and enemies of the Taliban. So they consider me too. And then we don't like each other much. We hate each other very, very well. So now I cannot work in Afghanistan because many of my friends are out. But for the moment, I am in a third country, just waiting for my process to go to US. I'll be heading to US. But when I am there, I have already talked to our friends over there. We are going to start this again, either by this name or we will change the name, but the purpose will be the same.
I really respect and really appreciate how you have, basically you have told us the values that a democracy holds when we talk about participation of citizens. it is not always necessary to get into the system to make a difference and to make a change, because I feel on the ground level, on that citizenry level, you can actually create a lot more difference. And public awareness is one of the most important things. And this is something that you can do staying in Afghanistan, or when you're not in Afghanistan, temporarily or permanent, because I still hope that the situation in Afghanistan in future changes, which of course is very uncertain, watching the conditions and certain events taking place around the globe. So I would thank you, and I really appreciate it. Has enlightened us a lot today, and to all our researchers, associates. And I would like to get back to Ifra for the thank you note, and if you'd allow. And we can also I would like to ask anybody from the the audience, if somebody wants to ask a question, please feel free to ask the question, because Idris is a very somebody who would like to enlighten, because his work is into awareness, and he does it really nicely. So yes.
Arshia, I have one question. Yeah, sir, as a Muslim, I know what Sharia talks about, and Taliban is completely misinterpreting and misimplementing the Sharia law in Afghanistan, and that is somehow mispresenting the Islamic rules. So, what do you think is the way out? Like, how this misinterpretation and misimplementation of Sharia law can be stopped?
Well, the problem with the Taliban is that they think that they're the only Muslim group in the whole world, or especially in Afghanistan. They think that they are the only holders of Islam in Sharia law, and they think that the other Afghans who is in favor of democracy, they think that it is against the Sharia law. While the truth is that democracy, even in Islam, electing your leaders, and we have the shura, and they say وَأَمْرُهُمْ, this shura that you have to set together and you have to discuss and talk. Yes, it's a kind of, it was a kind of voting system in the past. Even after Muhammad, peace be upon him, when his from his friends were elected, it was the same way, and they were almost, they said that Usman should come, Abu Bakr should come, Ali should come. It was all it was all, they were doing, in a kind of in a democratic way, not by force. And once they got into force after Hazrat Ali and when Muawiyah came, it became a disaster, and that's why Imam Hassan was assassinated and killed, unfortunately. So the first thing I would suggest is public awareness to the people of Afghanistan again. Then we should tell them, because in the rural areas, many people are still thinking that the Taliban are, implementing the Sharia law, and they are the real representative of the Islam. And because in the past 20 years, what happened that Afghanistan was divided into two major districts: the cities and the rural areas. The cities were full of modern youth, who would love democracy, who had access to internet, to education, who would meet women, and you would see women going to work and all of that. And there were rural areas that were bombed by the Americans. And there were night raids, there was no electricity, there was no internet, and that's how Taliban, got their support from those rural areas. So I think at the first we need to engage to the rural areas, because that is the root of the support of the Taliban. And we should do it, we shouldn't do it through these NGOs, through these social activists. They would not listen to them. We should do it through the Islamic scholars. The people would listen to them much than me, or a social activist, or a journalist. These Islamic scholars can really describe the real meaning of Islam to them, and they can, cut the support of the Taliban from the rural areas. Second, I think all the ulamas of the world, they came together even before the collapse of the republic, and they said that the war of Taliban is not jihad, it is terror. And Taliban knows this. It's not the Taliban don't know that. The Taliban leadership is very aware of that. But as I said before, it is just for their political agenda. They are using the name of Islam. Now, even the people of Afghanistan that I am in touch with, and them, they are saying that because of our our lives in danger, we cannot say things. But we are so in a disastrous condition with the Taliban regime, and people hate them. And mark my words here, they will not last long the way they are governing, because God has promised in Quran that those who are cruel will not survive, and they are cruel people. Their cruelty is very, very, clear to everyone. So I think we need public awareness. After that, we need an international unity on the Afghanistan issue. We don't have that because for now the Western countries are supporting Taliban. So unfortunately, they have the power internationally, and I think, and as for us, we don't agree inside Afghanistan and we don't agree outside Afghanistan to change. Unfortunately, nothing will change. There is no standard, unfortunately, a perfect standard. So I will say basic standards in the world. So if there is war or an Ukrainian children or women is killed, the whole world is going in shock, which they should, we shouldn't. But it doesn't matter if millions of people were killed in Iraq. 1 million people were killed in Iraq by Bush administration. No one said anything. And at the end, they didn't even apologize. They said only 2 words, intelligence failure. So for 1 million lives, you say 2 words, intelligence failure. 1 million lives were lost. And thousands of people in Afghanistan were killed inside their bombings inside Afghanistan. And they did nothing. So I think we need a third path, not the path that the Western countries and the international community is telling us. It's also not right because they have been terrorists by themselves. Bush, if you ask me, how many people have Taliban killed? 200,000 in Afghanistan, around that. How many people have Bush killed? Just in Iraq, 1 million Iraqis. Who is the biggest terrorist? Of course, Bush. It doesn't change you that you have a suit and a tie, and then you are not a terrorist, or you have a white color. A terrorist means to kill innocents, and they have killed innocents. So we cannot expect from terrorists to fight against terrorists because those are international terrorists and Taliban are on the national level terrorists. We need a third path, we need a third group, people like us who are not on the either side, who want a standard for every human inside this world. If he's Indian, if she's Indian, if Afghan, if he's from Ukraine, if he's from Iraq, we need to have a standard, and I think we can be the change. Like, look at Canada these days. The trackers are out against these, these COVID-19 rules, which is just amazing, and I support them because from the beginning, if you see, this COVID thing was a business. They told us if you get vaccinated, you will be not infected, and they were campaigning to get vaccines and masks and all those. But now that you are boosted and having vaccines, and they are saying, oh, those vaccines cannot secure you or anybody else, So we need to rise up, and we have to become people from sheeple. For the moment, all these nations, sorry to say this, but it's a fact, all these nations are kind of sheeple. They are sheep. They are just following the path. They are not asking questions. We need to be people back and take control and the power.
Thank you so much, Idris, and thank you, Ifra, for the question. It summarizes It summarizes a lot. It is just not contained. It's just not. It is something that does not focus only onto Afghanistan, but issues like extremism is global. And
And
I
sorry, I should add one more thing. Sorry
Sure,
to
please.
disturb. The Quran says, and if you ask any scholar, including Dr. Naik, they say if you don't become a good human, you cannot become a good Muslim. This is what the Quran says. This is what Muslim says, scholar says. That first, you have to become a good human, then you can become a good Muslim. The best Sharia law is to become a good human. That is the best Sharia law.
I totally agree. Any religion, there might be different means, but the end is one: to be a good person, to have honest intention, and it should not hurt anybody. And even if it's unintentional, we can always reverse it by being good and
Yeah.
improving ourselves. And that is what we need today. And I would like to move forward. Would like to turn to Ifra, and Ifra, you can just take over from here. Thank you, Idris, so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Um, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Idris sir and Arshay, for presenting us, especially Idris sir, for giving us the insights of what is actually happening in Taliban occupied Afghanistan right now, and the internal scenario and the internal instability that has been carried out by the Taliban, and especially the misimplementation and the interpretation of Sharia that they present to the world. Now, thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much for giving us your time, and we hope to have more such interactions in the future. And
Thank you.
now, with your kind permission, I would like to request everyone to log off from the meeting. And thank you again, sir. And we really
Thank
hope
you, ma'am.
to have many more interactions with you in the future.
Inshallah.
Thank you,
Inshallah.
sir.
Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you.
Have a great day, sir.
Bye bye.